What's up, everyone? Welcome to Generation
Yes.
Gap, where I am Roydell II. I finally found my father after 8 years. I was searching and I decided that I
That
wanted
is
to create a
funny.
podcast to catch up on lost times.
Right.
That is not
Oh,
true.
shit. That's
That's not true, but we're going to talk about a lot of things. What you see in front of you, you see foundations and framework, culture and connection, health and harmony, value and ventures, legacy and lessons. Those are the five different areas that we'll get into over the course of the podcast. You want to introduce yourself?
Roydell II to none. That's funny. That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, I'm Roydell. I'm the father. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
So this first episode, we're just gonna get a feel for, getting it out there, get the kinks going, but letting people know what it is that we talk about. Starting with, do you have a specific section you want to go? Actually, let's just talk about first how did we get here? Where did the generation gap come from? I know for me personally, um, I thought this was actually you had the idea first, so I'll let you go with that.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I was thinking about it, about how can young people talk to the older people, because I noticed that there's a lot of young people kept reinventing things that their dad did, right? Even the clothes and all that. There's calling it different names, right? And at the same time, I kind of realized that the older people should also talk to the younger people, because the younger people have a lot to teach the older people in terms of technology, culture, how they're navigating their lessons and their trials and tribulations and all that, right? And I also think that the older people also have a lot to teach the younger people, because we have seen a lot of the things that they think is new is just not. It's just in a different context. So I've decided at one point to say, okay, should I write a book, how to do that, especially in our community? And that's where it came from. And then I kind of talked to you about it, like what do you think? And then
And then I made it come to life. I said, you know what, Dad, let me do what I do.
right.
Let me do what I
That's
do.
funny.
Look, the
That's that's
generation
that's funny.
the generation gap, the way I grew up, played a lot of sports, great at a lot of different sports. People would be surprised to know that we didn't talk about sports in the house not once. That was never the main focus. The way that I grew up, as I grew up, I started to realize the way that I was taught was not how other people were taught. And so there was a lot of benefit to this. And some of the friends or people that knew about this podcast or the idea of the podcast coming out saw a lot of value in that, knowing who I am, knowing who my dad is, and then just seeing how that conversation goes, right? So a lot of the conversations I had where I'm talking about finance and then switching to accounting and then switching to music and culture and switching to history, all these different things, to be able to do that with your dad is not a common thing. It's not something that most people can do with their parent. Oftentimes, by the time they reach 15, they can't have any conversation with their parent because they're, I hate to say it, but it's the truth, obsolete in their thinking when it comes to modern times. That wasn't my experience, still yet to be my experience. So I feel like there's a lot of value to be had in these conversations. These conversations that you're seeing us have, including this one, are conversations we have on a weekly, daily basis. All right. So there's no fabricating, there's no trying to act for the camera. This is actually how our conversations are. So, and I think it's also a Jamaican thing as well. So there's that. But yeah. So let's start with legacy and lessons. What is it that we want to get across with legacy and lessons? I know I was the one that brought up the idea first, but what kind of value do you think that people will be able to take away from this? And how do you see value, right? Like, how would you
Yeah,
define
it's
value to start?
Yeah, that's a big question. That's a big question. But I think most of the growing up in Jamaica, in the Jamaican household, obviously, we were not allowed to talk back to our parents, and that's one of the main thing I've decided when I start having kids myself is that kids are not less than human, right? The kids are just smaller human beings. So that's number one. I used to make sure that you guys can ask any question, no matter how uncomfortable those questions are, providing that you ask those questions respectfully and you have some kind of knowledge or you can justify your ideas. So that's the core thing is that kids are not lesser human. I think they have their own minds, their brains, and their way of seeing things. And we have to really make sure that we're listening to you guys. So that's the number one thing I used to remember when even when you have family members came from Toronto and we were at the table during Christmas or something like that. And if Shante, which is my younger daughter, or Kayla, my youngest, or Sasha, or any one of my kids, six,
or me, you know. I'll
I'm not you. Yeah.
let's
That's
see.
right. I would have to say, no, no. I want to hear what Shante is saying, and I could see the the horror in some of the adults' faces when I'm saying, no, no. I want to hear. Like Shante, do you want to chime in, and what do you think? Right. So that's very very important in terms of how just a part of the culture because culture is holistic, not just one thing. It's more like a system, right? And how we look at that. But that's a really really important part of it.
Mhm. And I'll say this for legacy and lessons specifically. I feel like there's a lot of memories, a lot of stories that I want to talk about. For example, I know that there was a time when we were younger, and I don't know if you'll remember this, but we used to go to hotels, right? Go to
Oh yeah,
hotels, very well established, great
yeah,
establishments, right? And these are during the weekdays, regular weekdays, school year, so nobody's really taking these hotels, not as a family,
yeah,
booking it in your hometown. So we would go there and be in the lobby and be there. And I know for me, you feel weird at first, right? And there was the idea that
yeah.
you got to go there before you get there, right? These are your spaces. Feel comfortable, right? And we'd be
Yeah.
in the lobby. We'd dress well. You'd wear a suit and tie. I'd be, kids' version of a suit and tie, and we would just sit in the lobby. Nobody knew any different,
Yes,
and they weren't going
yes.
to come and bother you because you're living the part, acting the part.
We're
And I think,
Nigerian family, Nigerian kings. I used to
yeah,
tell you guys that we're they're gonna think that we're we're
yeah,
multi-billionaire Nigerian
no,
kings
and
or
it's
something
true,
like
and again, these are things that when I have kids too, I'll be able, especially sons, be able to teach them, right? Because when you grow up in the West, specifically, it's a different reality. So, Dad, you grew up in Jamaica for a large portion there. For me, I never had that experience growing up in Canada. And so when I ended up going to a boarding school and I went out to Bermuda and I played their national team there for basketball, but I got off the plane and that was the first time in my life I realized I'm a majority. I never had that experience to look around and the concierge black, the person taking your bag is black,
that.
the head of the store is black, the head of this company. Everywhere you go,
Yeah, yeah,
somebody that looks like you is in a position of power. That changes the way that you see things, and it reminds me too. And you were big on school, like you didn't want us to skip school, do anything like that. We can get into other stuff, but I remember when Barack Obama, which we can get into in a different segment, but
yeah,
when was inaugurated, um, the day he was inaugurated, you made us stay home from school that day. And I remember
holiday.
thinking, like, damn, like I just didn't want to go to school. But I think the sentiment there was in the West, here's somebody that's been able to reach the pinnacle, right? And if you can see yourself as the president of the United States, as a lot of countries see it to be the highest form of power, then what can that do for me specifically, right? Or
Yeah,
us as siblings? And that was what you put importance on beyond going to school that day. So these are things that we're going to talk about in legacy and lessons and see if that's actually the thought process or if that was just a coincidence. Um,
Yeah.
so stuff like
Actually,
that.
you know, like a lot of things are like your mother and I sat down and planned out a lot of these things, and I don't want to take 100% of the credit for all of these strategies.
You can take 50. That's
But
fine.
no, no, I need 80. I'm joking. Like, yeah, but yeah. So we sat down at different points and talk about like what we want our kids to be. And one of the things is I used to say like when you go out in a world which is very adversarial, and this is not a it's just the reality, the adversarial. You look around and you see the scientists, the astronauts, and all of those people just don't look like you. So we have to make sure that we provide that type of environment to kind of make sure that the environment. I always say the environment is really, really strong. So if we make the environment educational, then we don't have to push school as hard. It will just be something that you do, or academics or learning. That's what you do. So we used to decide to play educational games, for example. So to
Like what? Like
increase your
Scrabble.
yes, for like Scrabble,
Scrabble was our family game.
yeah, exactly. So you learn, and we went out and enforce and buy certain books with
Hmm.
words like word smart, right? Because I decided I've noticed that there's certain words that the so-called educated people use over and over and over and again, and those words are like the SAT words, and they're in a book called
Hmm.
Word Smart. So rather than use a dictionary to check the Scrabble meaning, we'll use Word Smart. So through osmosis, you guys will just have a good vocabulary. In the basement, again, I will have my library that books. So sometimes I'll just go down to the library, and if the kids were to come in the library downstairs, they would see me reading. So therefore, they will just want to read. So there's no need to force them to read. There's no punishment in learning how to
Well, you
read,
were you were
right?
very adamant about the idea of not having reading be a punishment, and I think in a lot of I can speak for the
Yes.
Caribbean culture. What are you doing? Put that down. Go read. Right. That idea of did you read today? Do something productive. Go read. And the reading was associated with punishment, with getting away from the things that you want to do. But I remember as a kid, I always felt, playing Smash Brothers, playing video games, and hearing go read, and then for you to say no, 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 we're not making that a punishment. I was like yes, because I just wanted to play my game, right? I get to continue playing my game, but
Yeah.
what it did is not make that negative association with learning, with reading, with knowledge per se. So knowledge acquisition. So
Yeah.
again, these are things that we're looking to speak about. There's so many more. Um, yeah, we'll get into all of that. So that
There's,
is the
there's
idea.
one. There's 1 second.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you. Sorry to cut you. But just before I forget, because remember I'm older, not because I look young, right? I'm still a grandfather. Yeah, but one of the things, just to add to what you said there, not to associate punishment with the acquisition of information and knowledge, is is the see, I told you that I'm old. All right, move on. The next
Yeah.
topic.
No, so
'Cause
just to see if you can get that back.
yeah.
What I was saying with the knowledge acquisition, right? That's the main thing, right? So not making those
Oh
negative
yeah, yeah, I remember now. I
associations.
remember. I remember. I remember. I
Yeah.
remember. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. The other one is in line with what you're saying about the mistakes. So when you will get certain things wrong from school, and I'm so excited that you got it
Hmm.
wrong because I'm saying,
Yeah,
but
I
it's
remember that.
dad, it's wrong. I got it. I'm saying no, no, no. But how did you get here? Right? Like
Hmm.
how did you the way you got here is really really insightful and creative and innovative, even though the answer is wrong. But the path to get here is correct. So it's one of those two things. It's don't no association with negative, no negative association with acquisition of knowledge, and no punishment because somebody made a mistake.
Right.
Because there's no real difference between making mistakes and learning if it's going towards a particular goal of what you're trying to do, right? So I make sure that that didn't happen. And I think looking at the accomplishment that you guys, I'm not trying to take credit for anything, but just the path. I think that was the right path. That was the
Hmm.
right decision.
And I think the last thing here for the legacy and lessons is to kind of give a background to you, because I know a lot of people might look at this from the beginning and think, okay, well, why are you qualified to speak on this? Like, what is your life experience? I think we kind of need to get into that a little bit. So here are some things I could say for you. You were a police officer, right? The coding, Dell, Nortel, music, right? Not just a musician, traveled, performed, awards, all this stuff, soccer as well too. Um, you can go into a whole different bag. Data, right? Creative strategist, ran your
The
several
data
different
science.
businesses, the highest evaluation. I'm just throwing out things for you to speak to. The
Yeah.
the evaluation that you had there. Um, Obviously, you were in LLM, we're in blockchain, we're in this new era. But what's cool now, you were doing it before it was cool. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, another thing with I'll say as a story for you, and then I'll let you bring it in, which is I remember one of the initiatives that you're doing, and I think at this point about 15 years ago, and you're putting together what I now know is your business model, your business plan, whatever it is, your presentation, going to the bank, having dressing up well, leaving the house, going there, and it was for a company called Errand Boy. Now,
Oh yeah.
if you know what errand doing
That's
an
like
errand
20
is,
years ago.
that's
That was
I think
20
it's
years
about
ago.
20 years ago
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Errand, and I know a lot of you guys might know this, but for those of you that can't, errand is something that you do when you have to most of the time leave the house. It's a task that you're looking to get complete, right? I need to run an errand. I need to go and pick up the milk from the grocery store. I need to do certain things. Errand
Yeah.
boy is, obviously a play on a lot of the positions that have boy at the end, bellboy, things like that. They're at your service. So an
Yeah.
errand boy, simply said, is somebody that will be doing the task for you, aka get your groceries, doing this stuff, and bring it to you directly. If that doesn't sound to you like Uber or DoorDash or Meet the Dishes, whatever, I don't know what it is, 20 years ago, right? So uh, these are
With an
those,
app, like, and
yeah.
I make sure that I have the app. The iOS and the Android was like just starting out at that time. Um, so I got it, everything working. One of the reason why the errand boy,
And
I
let's
think,
hold that thought, that
okay,
because we'll switch
okay,
over to value and ventures for this one.
okay, yeah,
Yeah,
got it.
you're good.
Yep.
So yeah, no, value and ventures. Well, you can go finish the errand boy part there. I've already switched it over, so we're good to go.
Oh, okay, yeah. So the errand boy was, I had this idea, like, see, people doing small errands, and I'm saying, okay, why not just create an app, right, and offer these services, and it was going like, so I started talking to people, different people at Chapters. This is a bookstore called Chapters with a Starbucks in it. So I used
Hmm.
to do a lot of work. Been working
Indigo.
from
Some of you guys might know it
yeah.
as Indigo today.
Oh, Indigo. Yeah, yeah. It's yeah, Indigo. Yeah, it's Indigo. Canadian version of Indigo. I think Indigo actually bought it. Yeah. So I used to be there and just keep talking to people about like if they were be interested in something like that, and the feedback I started getting, so I could start putting a business model together, and then start raising funds. I got like two people who were interested. Mahmoud, if you're listening to this, you're you're a trailblazer, right? Um, so apps and all that was brand new at the time. You know what I mean? Like it was research in motion. What you know as BlackBerry, they didn't have an app store or anything like that. So Apple and Android was just coming out, and then I put the app together and all that stuff, start raising funds. And then I think what happened was the gas price went up and it wasn't feasible anymore, right? So
Mm.
that's what happened, errand boy. So it was really the gas price and all the cars that we need. the capex, the amount of money that we need to start. Um, so that one, and then right after that, before we switch over, I started with I raised some from a friend of your brother Chad, PK. I told him that I have an idea for 7 cents, right? So where an app can
Mm-hmm.
I could leave a geolocation. Like if you see a good like a nice sunset, you should be able to just leave that in a geopolitical in a geolocation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of those. I was just too early at those times. Right? We raised like 60,000 or something like that. I managed to get two PhD together. Um, Oma Young, if you can hear, I hope you're good in the wherever you are. So Oma Young was our PhD engineer at the time. We got to a point where we have a minimum viable product. Again, it was just too early. So yeah, I've been there. I've
Mm-hmm.
done a lot of those
Yeah.
cutting edge innovation at that time, and
Yeah.
still is.
And I remember in the business school, my undergrad, one of the things that they said, I think there was this big study that they've done, reasons why certain startups and stuff don't end up realizing the potential. And the number one reason was because of timing. It wasn't
Yep,
because of team, it wasn't because of capital, it wasn't because of, it's just, you
yep,
were just too early or too late, most of the time too early for
yep,
people to catch on, right? And
yep.
that's kind of the thing that you'll find. So with value and ventures as an idea, why do we have this area, this segment? I think value and ventures, again, every segment, as far as I see it, represent what it is that my dad and I speak about every day, but is sectioned in a way that you're able to hear us on one or two or three or all five, right? So these are not things that we're trying to force to talk about because it's relevant to the times and oh we're trying to catch trends. We talk about this all the this is what I grew up speaking about, right? Sitting 2 hours at the table. It was not, son, dad, go to the baseball game or the basketball game or watching, sports together.
Yeah.
It
A lot of
was,
strategy.
yeah, it was strategy. It was books. It was learning how to navigate successfully in this world, right?
Philosophy.
Same education is not equal education. How to go about
Yeah,
it. So a lot of different stuff. Value and ventures fits into to the value and venture category is oftentimes you think ventures, you think business, right? Business ventures, for example. And when you think value, you think money, making the most money. So, yes, we are going to speak about money. However, we make the distinction, and my dad will clarify on that between money and value. So, I'll let you run the value part. But the point here is
right.
that we'll be speaking about everything from, what's happening politically, uh, stocks, crypto, blockchain, uh,
AI,
you name it. So that's kind of
technology,
what's going on. Technology, yeah.
enabling technology. Yeah. So the value, and what I'm gonna say on this is not like we invented any of this. It's just like people know all these stuff. They're in books, they're in courses, they're around. So we define value is not money. In fact, I think money is not even something that we're trying to pursue directly. It's not like we're altruistic and say money is like we want to go off and live in the forest somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
We're not saying that, but we're saying you have to add value. So, what is value? There's a lot of definition for value, but at the same time, we decide to have our own definition, and there's going to be overlap with other people's definition of value. But we started off by saying if a person and there's value where it's kind of linked to how you raise your kids, your belief system, and all that. We're talking about value as you compare it to money. So value is what you give to help another person make progress. And what does that mean? Making progress. Well, we just believe that most people are trying to get to point B and they're now at point A. So anything that we can do to help them get closer to point B is value. So if you notice that we're not talking about how much money we're trying to make and so on, we're trying to help you, the person, get to the desired state, the desired goal, where they're trying to be in life, right? And if we can do that, that is value. The offshoot, or so that's the cause. If you look at a causal structure, so that is the cause, and the
Mm-hmm.
effect is money or something else of value that eventually can morph into money. But money is like the last part of it.
Right. The
So value
byproduct
is what you
almost.
do. It's a byproduct.
Yeah.
It's the effect of the cause, and the cause is you care enough about people. I notice even though I'm in AI, I'm an AI person, right? But even AI, we're gonna if you have to evaluate the value of that's a sick lyric. Okay, if you have to evaluate the value of AI, it's how much it can help other people get closer
But
to their
shouldn't we be
desired state.
scared? Shouldn't we be scared of AI? That's
Uh,
because again, being in an academic setting, I was as an academic advisor, people were scared of this. They're trying to abolish it, trying to get rid of it. Um, there's an argument that kids are not learning. This is not here. It's not going to help us. This is the last frontier where the robots, the iRobot kind of Will Smith thing, where the robots are going to take over the world, and this is sort of the beginning of the end. So, do you think people should be fearful?
yeah, it's not one of those binary, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
yes, they should be fearful, or no, they shouldn't be fearful. I think there are there's gray area. I'm more optimistic, but if you notice, I think the people who are most fearful are the people, the incumbents. So people who are doing who set up the guardrails, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who were comfortable in a particular area where there's a huge barrier to entry. Those people are more fearful. Like I'm not knocking academia, but if you look at school system, they have a monopoly on teaching, a monopoly and departing information, like in a didactic setting. In what I mean by that is in an instructional setting. And here comes this thing that will democratize education, for example, right? So education, those people is going to be more fearful. Lawyers is going to be more fearful because they monopolize the legal knowledge and information. And if you, in an adversarial setting, for example, the West, North America, where if you can't afford a good lawyer, you're going up against a person who can, 9 times out of 10, you're going down. No, that's
You're
going to be
going to jail.
democratized. You're going to jail,
No, I
right?
see. Yeah.
So I can understand, you know what I mean. So you can
Mm-hmm.
understand how some people are going to be more fearful, but there's also reason for fear because um, if if this system called AI, right, especially generative AI, where you can now generate almost anything. It's not Google, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
can also go and learn how to create a bomb, how to create a missile, and all that. Then there should be reason to have some concern. But I'm not one of those people in the camp that AI is going to take over, even though I know I can see the capability and I don't the capabilities of AI, Gen AI,
Mm-hmm.
where it could go, but I also see that this have a really good chance of democratizing education, medicine. Um, I, there's nothing it's not going to be capable of touching and can make it better. But at the same time, I understand why some people, especially people in the incumbent,
Mm-hmm.
right? People who used to hoard information and knowledge, they can't do that anymore.
Right.
Yeah, it's gonna disrupt every single thing that you think.
Yeah.
Oh, one other thing, I think this is the first time in history where questions is going to be more important than answers. So if you look at what used to happen before, if you and I went for a job and I can answer more questions than you can, I would get that job because the metric that they're measuring whether I'm better than you is how many questions I can get right.
Right.
Where now with Gen AI, it's the quality of the question, not the quality of the answers. Because the Gen AI have all the answers,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't get to them unless you can frame or morph an answer that can actually get a question that can get the answer back. right? So what does that do?
So
Well,
hold on.
this is the last thing on the topic. This is the last thing. This is the last thing before
Yeah.
you come back in because I want to get this. Remember, I'm an old guy, okay? So I have to.
I'm just trying to keep to
Yeah,
the sections. Well,
yeah. No, I know. But I want to just get
I
this
know
out.
if you I
Like,
know if you get in your bag, then we're into systems and frameworks, or
yeah, that's true.
frameworks and
But
foundations. Yeah.
that's true. But it's the last thing on this topic. So what I was saying is that right now the creative people, the people who are creative, because all the answers are there. So you, so it's the people who are creative. It's not the coders. Like I used to believe that most of the coders you're going to be here forever. No, the creative people now can code because AI is going to code for them. So I think the ultimate, the unique selling proposition at this point, the edge, what's going to give you
so you
edge
think there's hope?
creativity.
You think there's hope for the art students and stuff like that? No, you think gone are the days that just because you have a computer engineering degree that you are the backbone of the future, that
Exactly.
you can create the infrastructure that we're all going to use. Now you think that the creatives are now
The
be able to,
creatives.
yeah.
Not just know to be able to compete. I even go one step further that a lot of smart people I know would disagree with me. I think creative people is going to be more in demand than technical people because I could just talk to an AI and let the AI code an agentic or agent for me. So the winning, the most important thing is not technical knowledge anymore, but creative knowledge. So a designer is going to be able to build better things now that they can just talk it into existence.
Well, that's so. How does that relate? Because it makes me think about the SATs, for example, right? Where that is a standardized test that often tests for specific things, right? Memory, so forth. But one thing that seems to be falling out of the SATs, for example, is creative endeavors. Yes, they have certain things as far as frameworks, but you're more than likely just following a specific framework, right? You read a book, you read the SAT book, you prep for it, you're going to see something that's pretty much one to one or damn near the same or close enough, and that's what it is. So it's more a memory exercise than it is
Yep.
anything else. Obviously, you're going to have your
Yep.
math, you have to go through the solutions, right? Computation. But I do agree. I think the creative is here now. I think in a lot of spaces that we are, it's still weird. People are still feeling weird about using Chat GPT, but some of the things that we'll talk about in value and ventures, but also another category that we have is Chat GPT is not large language. Chat GPT isn't the only thing that AI is. And I think a lot of people have that understanding right now that that's the
Yep.
only use case for it, not realizing that this has already started to change. And it reminds me of something that you used to say, which is the future is here. It's just not, do you remember what it is?
Yeah, it's not well
Like
distributed. It's not
distributed,
equally distributed.
right?
That's
Widely
I got that from
distributed, or, so that's
widely distributed.
right. So that's
I
kind of what,
ethically borrowed that from some book I read maybe 10, 15 years ago.
yeah.
And it just stuck with me. Yeah.
So that's two of them. So we'll leave. So that's kind of the idea for legacy and lessons, value and ventures. We have three other categories, and we'll sort this out. We'll get this clean. We'll also, some of the things that we're putting together from now is having the Q&A. Uh, we have our Slack that we have set up. Where you guys will be able to join that and then be able to have access to specific channels for specific reasons, behind the scenes, a lot of stuff coming, Patreon as well. So we'll get into all that, but this is still only the first episode. So a lot to do and look forward to it. Next, we have health and harmony. So let's hop over to that. My thoughts on health and harmony as a section. Um, really just that. You talk about vaccines, you talk about what to eat, salt in your diet, different things. Again, just
Yep.
being from the Caribbean culture, the Jamaican culture, eating natural is part of it, right? Fruits, banana, all that stuff. Grew up in a household where I didn't have access to all the Dunkaroos and the Rice Krispies and all these cool snacks that
Fruits on the
everybody had.
table.
It was fruits. And that's all that you
Very
had
good
that was
fruits.
there, right? And
Yep.
obviously that played into to how I see things in the future. Even as far as salt, I can't eat certain foods now because we didn't have this wide. Uh,
Yep.
I think my mom is diabetic. There's a point where that shift, and so some of the food, even the cultural food that would normally have a certain amount of salt intake, we found different variations. Shout out to my mom to change some of these recipes, still make it taste good, but also healthier too. So certain things
Yep.
now I just can't eat because of how apparent the salt is. For example, in my
Yep.
house now, my girlfriend and I, it's fruits, it's vegetables, it's kale. Kale is one of those things that those superfoods
Yep.
that my dad did a lot of research on when we were younger. So to incorporate some of that stuff.
Yep.
So this is kind of what we'll speak about here, among other things as well. But that's kind of where my mind is at, and I'd love to be able to share that because I know a lot of people may not have had the same type of upbringing, but also have access to the
Yep.
same type of information. And what the beautiful thing is, and I'll let you chime in here after this. The beautiful thing is we live in a world with AI, as we just talked about. So you have access to ChatGPT, and you can take some of these ideas. And if you're thinking about incorporating a kale type recipe because you hear what we're talking about, you have access to be able to do that. And then we'll also have
Yep.
some other stuff in the pipeline. I won't reveal just yet, but stay tuned. That will also make that a lot easier uh, moving forward. Still not going to say too much. So yeah, Dad, what do you think about health and harmony as a segment of ours?
Yes, exactly. Like because I'm never going to be the type of person who will. And we I live in Ottawa, and Roydell lives in Quebec. So in Ottawa, there's a lot of people with I call them the red bag people, right? They go to this gym. I forgot what it's called.
Mm.
So you will see everyone walking
Oh, good
around with a
life,
red
good life.
bag.
Yeah.
Good life fitness, right? It's good marketing. So I'm not a big, even though I used to be an athlete. I think I still am an athlete, even though I'm older. I can still live that life as much as I can. But I just think we should insert healthy living in the way you live. Like for example, I don't walk up any stairs. I always run up the stairs, right? That type of thing. So I kind of just insert just internalize all the different things that healthy living. I eat like say twice a day, so I will not eat until the next day at 2 o'clock, right? And that's just a normal thing that I do. Things like that. So I think health and its impact, right? If you eat a lot of acidic foods, then that will have an impact on how much you learn. And
Hmm.
I'm a lifelong learner, so I'm always learning. Right, I'm in AI, I'm in
But
blockchain.
you don't know any of the chemistry and the biology of how this stuff works. So this
Right.
we're just bringing down old time wisdom. So this is
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
um you know we're keeping it very surface level at this point in time. But
Yeah. It's true.
again, when you want to get down into amino acids and understanding the cellular, all that stuff, these are conversations I had to sit through when I
Yeah,
was
well,
younger and really understanding it. I want to have you understand while other kids, for example, had posters of their Michael Jordan and all that stuff, what was put into my room, all right, put
right.
into,
Right.
I had the
Right.
periodic table: hydrogen, lithium, beryllium, sodium,
Yeah.
magnesium, potassium,
Right.
all the way through, understanding what
Shante
a
has.
halogen and what noble gas, right?
Right.
Understanding
Shante
valence
has the
electrons.
globe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the full. So these are, it's a,
Shante has the globe. Wait. I think Shante in Shante's the globe, the globe. So I'll walk in the room and say, okay, where am I? Right?
mm-hmm.
I think Kayla has the human body. Or no, Shante has the human body. Right? So kind of know, okay, that's not the knee bone, it's the patella. Right?
Yeah, and those,
Right?
we're
That's
gonna,
not the right. Let's see. So it's important to I believe I start doing accelerated learning because I wanted to make sure that my kids can learn anything really, really fast without going through the drudgery. Like it shouldn't be painful to learn. So I start doing accelerated learning, just start reading a lot of books and photo reading, speed reading, mind mapping, and things like that. Visualization, memory. Okay, you
mm-hmm.
can memorize anything, put it on your body, turn numbers into pictures and things like that. So I start doing all that. But then I'm still keeping it close to health. then I
Yeah.
realized that when I started doing more research, I realized that if there's a adverse effect, there's a negative effect on over acidification. If you eat a lot of sugar and then ask the kids to learn, right? That's when I start making sure that only fruits on the table. Sugar in terms of maltose or sucrose, the different types of sugar, and the how they kind of break down when it goes through the body and go down for energy, ATP or whatever. Like what is affecting that in terms of food, and what type of food is enabling learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because my thing was, if then I realized that there's a definite link between the foods that you eat, your health, and your ability to learn and retain information in a easy way without people forcing you. Yo, do this now. Go read. Right.
Yeah.
Go to your bed.
No, it's all
Hey,
there.
so yeah. So
No, it's
that was it.
yeah. So that's
Yeah.
so those are the things we'll get into, and I think health and harmony. I think about, uh, when I was younger too. You know how they had that chart where it showed the different food groups and all the stuff that you had to eat when they decided to. I remember we talked about when they decided to push the milk campaign and make that something of
Yes.
a standard. So a whole bunch of
Edward
different stuff.
Bernays.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll get into that, and again with real life, real time events and things like that that come out. Those are the
Yeah,
things that will.
especially crypto investments.
Mm-hmm.
How Roydell and I, all we think about investing in terms of fundamental, because Roydell went to business school. I didn't go to business school, but I just did a lot of learning through MIT Open Courseware. So MIT opened up their
Mm-hmm.
university maybe
Yeah.
20 years ago.
And
So I
let's
just kind of,
actually switch over to foundations and
yeah,
frameworks, because I think
okay,
that would it.
fund it.
So that's so just because we're getting the sense of legacy lessons, value ventures, health and harmony. You guys got a sense of where we're going with those three, and then foundations and frameworks. So you
Okay.
mentioned that
Yeah.
the do you want to bring up your other initiatives at this point in time, or do you want to keep them?
Yeah, we'll talk about that later because what Roydell is referring to is I'm currently working on a couple AI projects, mindful voice, multimodal, meaning can talk, listen, similar thing that you see now in Google. Well, I've been doing it for a little while now. It's a Google catch up. Okay, Google, you catch up, but right and tool thinking. So I decide because of some of the stuff that I said earlier that this is the first time in history where questions are more important than answers. So what are what are the unique selling propositions then? It has to be how tool thinking and frameworks. You have to think in terms of frameworks, and I think people in the metropolitan area, kids, what they should be teaching kids, and we'll go over that um, in weeks and months to come,
Mm-hmm.
is framework thinking, like systems approach, right? Because once you understand how systems work internally, even conceptually, you're going to be better able to use chat gpt or any other large language model or multimodal. Because when we say large language model, it's a misnomer because what happened now is that they're no longer just language models. It's the same algorithm, but now they can talk, they can see, and all that. It's using the same transformer architecture, the same architecture, but it now is not just large language model anymore.
Right.
It's more multimodal.
And
Yeah,
hear this
we'll get
too.
into it.
Hear this too, because and I think foundations and framework. I also think mental foundations, mental frameworks as well, right?
Yes.
So these are
Yep.
things that help you get through, for example, understanding what winning looks like, right? To be able to step back and
Yep.
figure out
Yep.
how to do
Yep.
this stuff, right? So you don't get caught up in certain things. So to be able to
Yep.
navigate, um, my early 20s, university, workplace, all these different things, how to actually think about the room, right? What is it that people want? The value that you're looking
Exactly.
to provide versus what it is you're looking to take, understanding that you have to give a little bit in order to, and yes, there's the whole bunch there, but really just having that understanding that you want to be able to give and the law of reciprocity or reciprocity will come back and create
Yep.
the
Yep.
ability to capture value, right? We talked about the idea of the invisible bank making these deposits
Yep.
into this by the value that you're providing and not trying to capture at the same time some of these subtle nuances. And one of the things you said
Yeah.
too, the difference is that sometimes it's the difference that makes a difference, right? So
Yep. Or the
can
difference
you,
that makes a difference. Oh, sorry, cut you.
yeah,
But the difference that makes a difference is so small, but the impact is so large, right?
that's it.
So it kind of nuances that you're talking about.
Yeah. So that's kind of where it is. So foundations and frameworks, we're really gonna get into the details, the nitty gritty, as they like to say. So that's kind of where that's at. And then to bring it back, we'll go to the final section, which is culture and connection. The Diddy trial. No, I'm joking, but not
I don't know what.
the paparazzi. No, we're not gonna do all the. But nothing's off
Yeah,
limits here if, as far as what's going on. If it's relevant in the times, that may be something that we might speak about. It might be something that quite interests you. You might be in our Slack or our Patreon, and that's a question or something that you'd really like to see how our perspective on that. Those are some of the things that we might touch on, or if we really feel like that's something that requires a bit more than just, a minute or two here, we might just make
yeah,
that part of a larger part of this a segment or so. So uh, we want to
yeah,
be able to have a larger conversation. Generation gap is not just between my dad and myself, but obviously this conversation includes you guys as well, partaking from whichever side or angle you are from when it comes to this generation, and we want to bridge that gap. We want to bridge it by having
yeah.
these conversations and providing the necessary tools, heart set, frameworks, mindset to different individuals to be able to get the results that they're looking for in their lives and the other people around them as well. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I see the culture and connection. I really look forward to this part for sure.
Yeah, this is the what's amazing is that I'm actually doing this because even though I performed a lot and growing up as a musical artist, I was so afraid that I'm gonna have to be talking to a microphone. That was very scary, even though I do public speaking, do a lot of public speaking and all that. So I'm not it's not new to me, but just talking to a microphone was scary. And then I realized it's okay. So this is my first time. No, this is my second time because I did one other podcast before this, one episode on Tool Thinker, another project that we're working on. Yeah. So yes. So this is good. This is good.
Hmm.
This is good. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there
So we'll
anything
see.
right now culturally that's going on? We'll leave the Trump and the politics one for this. We'll maybe get into that a little
Yeah.
bit later. Obviously, Canada, and all that. But again, those are things that will fall into this category. So as far
Yep.
as culture too, um, I know we can get to Caribbean culture, we can get to Canadian, um, you know, parents versus you know the children as well too growing up. So I also see here having conversations, and this kind of relates more to the connection as you grow older. The difference between how kids have to come into their own, right? I I know in our culture, in the black culture specifically, uh, you 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 have to try to make your parents proud, right? And I feel like oftentimes there's a confusion there between making your parents happy and making them proud. And as you get older, you reach a certain point, you have to come into
That's a
your
good
own.
distinction. That's good.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
good.
big distinction. Big
Yeah.
distinction.
I did.
And the reason
Okay.
why I say that is because a good son or daughter will want to make their parents happy. They will want to make their parents proud. But it's not the responsibility to make them happy. And I feel like a lot of times when
Oh,
kids reach a certain age, they need to understand that your priority is not to make them happy. It's to make them proud of you. And again, the thing with being proud, they might not be happy with you for several years. They may not be
that,
here, but
that,
in due time, if they're proud of you, right? And
yeah.
that is the
Okay.
only goal for a child to have. Really, great. If you can make them happy too without sacrificing your future and how you, because you have to pave. And this kind of reminds me of something that you used to say: go and make new mistakes, right? Don't
Yes,
make the
yes, yes.
same
Exactly.
mistakes. For me, go out there and make new mistakes, that sort of thing. So that's, I feel like we can tie that into culture. And I have some videos and shorts that I've saved that I do want us to take a look at and then be able to discuss those. So we're obviously going to bring in media and that sort of stuff to it as well.
Okay, okay. That's true.
So that's kind of where it's at. I feel like we have a good sense of the generation gap. We just wanted to have a
Yep.
conversation here as the first one, just kind of get the nerves out, get the, you know, the details, the conversation, just so you give you
And the
guys
other
a
thing too,
sense.
and the other thing is, if you listen to the name, it's generation gap. So the idea is not to keep the gap, right? Our goal, our vision ought to be and should be and is to close that gap by
Mm-hmm.
having conversation and discussion about how Roydell and I, will Shanti and Kayla and them will at some point join us, right? At
Yeah,
different times.
that's
They're
what's just
busy.
yeah.
Yep.
You you hiding from me right now or what? You trying to hide from me? Hide
You
your
can't see
camera
me?
from me? So well,
No, you seen me?
no, no,
No,
I'm
you
not.
seen me?
No, I'm not. You're getting camera shy.
My camera is gone?
Yeah.
You joking?
No,
I
I'm
can
not.
see myself.
Oh, okay. No,
So it's maybe it's you.
no, no, it's not me.
You can see me now?
No, I can't.
No, I'm there. It's not. Maybe I'm a ghost.
Yeah. So I guess that's the sign.
Yeah,
I'll take it as a
that's a
sign. I am
sign.
seeing your bars. Your bars are still moving up and down. So again, these are the things that
Really?
we look to.
Yeah.
We're gonna get all the kinks and all these technical stuff sorted out so we can deliver the best conversations, best value, and have you guys be
And
able
and
to
and the other
join in.
thing, the other thing I have to give you some respect for too is that we everything that we're doing here we use open source. So this is not Zoom or anything like that. All the animation, all this stuff we kind of use only open source, and it was like a project of ours to actually get this done so we
Yeah.
can bring get the same quality. So it's a lot. It's a lot of work. Rodel did a lot of work. I do some of the research in some of to get the tech stack up. But Rodel did a lot of work to make sure that this has the same type of quality as the paid version. So that's some of the stuff that we'll share behind the scenes. Some of the ideas that we in due time we'll share some of our
Yeah.
secret sauce in different things.
Yep.
So we're getting
Exactly.
there.
Yeah. And again,
Yes.
you're right. We're pushing the envelope, and this is just the start. What you're seeing here is not nowhere near what it is that we envision this to be, even 3 to 6 months from now. So stay tuned for that. So that's the first episode, Generation Gap
Oh,
epilogue. I don't know if it's no Epi is ending, right?
yeah. I think Epi.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
Epi
I
means
think Epi
ending.
is ending. Yeah, yeah. That's the other thing. Remember, I said, okay, go learn all of the prefix and the
Yeah, suffix. Yeah,
suffix and prefixes, and so you can
yeah,
figure out the word without knowing what the word is.
yeah. In
So
grade
to do
like
all
two
that
or
stuff.
three, this is not like I know a lot of you guys might think that's
Yeah,
high school. No, that was like grade 2, 3. So I
yeah.
think first episode, first recording in the books. It's a success. Again, we talked about it. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're talking about progress. That's how we do this stuff.
Yes,
So that's where it is.
perfection. Well, the difference between perfection and what's the other word? You tell me. Not perfection. It's I'm not gonna tell you then. That's
Progress.
it.
Yeah.
Like I'm pleased because just to be frank for a minute and not Roydell. Just yeah, like this is not easy for me to be talking. Usually I'm talking to someone, right? Or I'm talking to an audience, but I'm now talking directly to that one person that's looking, right? You. It's good. I'm talking to my camera. So
Oh, I
yeah,
thought
I
you were
want to
talking to me.
thank. Oh, you thought I was talking to you? Yeah, that's it. That's it. Thanks for supporting. Or that's our first. This is the first thing that we're doing on this podcast. There's a lot more to come. Peace.
Subscribe to our YouTube.
Oh
Like,
no,
comment, subscribe.
no,
Nah,
we'll get
I
yeah,
know.
we'll get all. No, but what I'm saying is we'll make sure that we have all of those things coming up, like the subscribe, the automate, all that type
Mhm.
of thing.
Yeah, we'll get in our bag. We'll get in our bag. All right. Generation Gap. First recording in
Yep.
the books. See you guys in the next one.
Yep.
Peace.